graffiti as a topic would be interesting to our students because so many of them, live and work and go to school in New York City. It's such a big part of life here. A lot of them really hadn't thought about graffiti and what it means, and they either sort of thought of it as this evil, horrible thing that is dirty and nasty in their apartment buildings, or as this beautiful art thing, murals and such. And so for a lot of them, it was really eye-opening to see the difference, that there was another way to look at it. And I just thought that giving them a topic they were inherently interested in would be an easier way for them to deal with the whole idea of research and writing, which a lot of them are very resistant to and frankly haven't done before on this level. The students at LaGuardia are incredibly diverse, and that's a wonderful thing. We have older students coming back to school, we have students right out of high school, students who are native born, some who are immigrants, and the challenge that is presented with that is finding a place where they can all come together, some commonality.
Graffiti artists? Maybe? And are they affiliated with any kind of organization or anything?
It is a composition class, and so one of the main things that we want them to be able to do at the end of the semester is to write a research paper, to learn how to do research, how to find appropriate sources, how to quote appropriately using citations and works cited and all that, and also to write a coherent essay, with a clear thesis statement that is supported by examples and specifics, and specifically responding to a text, whether that be a newspaper article or an interview or a book or a film, whatever it may be. The very first thing I ask students to do is an in-class informal writing about the topic of graffiti. This is before doing any discussion or research on the topic. I really just want to hear from them. What are your feelings about graffiti, and why do you feel that way?
What could you possibly write about graffiti besides it's disgusting? And I didn't realize at the point there was much more to it.
I thought it was just a bad thing. Vandalism is the first thing that comes to mind.
Growing up, I've seen a lot of graffiti, and my brother's an artist, and he's done graffiti, and friends of his have done graffiti, and all different kinds of art.
First of all, graffiti is something that if you don't know much about it, you don't know what it means.
After discussing the class's initial impressions, I distribute two images. One is Keith Haring's Crack is Whack mural, and the other is an image of a subway car covered head to toe in graffiti.
Yeah, it's kind of more mainstream, like it's legible, you can understand it right away, what he's trying to say, and it's so therefore it speaks to different ages, all ages.
Okay.
It's more coherent.
It gives off a very unpleasant feeling. It's not very welcoming. It looks dirty. It perhaps looks dangerous to other people because it shows that there's not enough people there to supervise the trains because they're able to get do so much damage.
In the second stage, they choose a focus. After having examined what they already know, they decide what they would like to write their essays about. The English department also has a partnership with the LaGuardia and Wagner archives, so I have the opportunity to bring my students there to learn what an archival document is, how to read an archival document, and also how to use the archives to do their research.
You develop your own opinion. I'm going to teach you how to be the scholar today. I want you to disagree with that author, okay? And develop your own critical thinking skills in your paper. Right? Audio and video, they're both primary sources, and this is the world's community college, right? So, for those of us where English isn't our first language, I highly, highly, highly recommend that you try to integrate more audio and video, visuals, into your research. This is the error that I'm talking about, right? And part of that crime, obviously, is what? Vandalism, graffiti. But that's exactly what we're here to talk about today. Is graffiti art or vandalism?
For stage 3, students were asked to create an outline with a working thesis and at least 3 major points that they plan to use to support that thesis.
So I just thought of it as disrespectful. That was the bottom line. You don't have permission, why are you doing it? And then all these, articles and movies and going to 5 Pointz and meeting people that actually do graffiti and learning about how it's so much a part of their culture and how really it's their voice.
Because I come from the Czech Republic, the only graffiti I knew was pretty much some black written racial slurs and swastikas drawn all over big cities, and it just had really negative effect on me. So doing my research and being here in New York City, which is like the birthplace of graffiti, it actually provided me with different insights. And
I think for a lot of students here, they don't realize that going somewhere, like to a museum or to a space, is actually research, and it is, and it's part of their experience living in New York, and it's part of what's around them, and so I try to encourage them to see that as research in its own way. Stage 4 asks students to continue to do research based on the working thesis statement they have developed. I first saw 5 Pointz from a subway car on the 7 train, and as soon as I saw it, I thought to myself, I need to go there in person. I need to see this place up close. When I go to 5 Pointz with students, I get a huge range of reactions. Some students are literally frightened by seeing so much graffiti in one place at one time, and some are incredibly excited and validated by it. I find that our visit to 5 Pointz really solidifies the various perspectives on graffiti. It shows students that up close and personal, it's something that is affecting their lives, that there are strong reactions to, and it's a much more immediate reaction than just reading an article or reading a resource about it.
It's art.
Once it goes on the wall, it becomes something totally different. Like Mears, the guy who runs this place, said, if nobody would have ever written on a train or on a wall, these things would have been done on paper eventually anyway. So, you know, no matter any way you scratch it, it's art at the end of the day.
I just didn't like, you know, like when you see just scribbles that you don't understand, that is kind of like vandalism on property that shouldn't be. But I think this is a great idea, you know, that graffiti artists can come and, you know, express their, you know, creativity, and it's beautiful. Like, it's just a really nice place. A thesis, yes, but I'm thinking of changing it.
Okay.
But
can you tell me what your thesis sentence is?
I had to write it down. The combination of graffiti and gang violence leads to deaths of innocent bystanders. But I want to change. I think I want to change it. But so far that's what I want to.
So did coming here today help you change, or help you
It definitely definitely did, and we'll see. I gotta do some research, you know.
Right.
But this was a great trip. I thought I really liked this. It definitely opened my mind up a lot, and it was great.
For Stage 5, students write a first draft, and I also ask them to do class presentations, to express to the class what their thesis statements are, what sources they have found and are using in their essays, and how those sources relate to their thesis statements.
Do you have an answer to that question of is it art or is it tagging?
It started all as tagging, but it's just that as the years passed, people, new artists have changed it into like artwork, into a form of art.
Okay, so you feel that graffiti is indeed artwork? Even
Yes.
though maybe it began as tagging, it is
Yes.
no longer just tagging.
I think it's artwork. Yeah.
Illegal graffiti shouldn't be supported by anybody because it causes serious influence to community, may have negative effect on our children and teenagers, and cause a large amount of money.
My essay is legal graffiti in New York City.
Okay.
My thesis statement is, by creating a socially acceptable environment for graffiti artists to present their artwork legally, would help decrease graffiti in unwanted places while giving artists a chance to be seen.
Is it considered art or is it a crime?
And so what's the answer to that question in your mind?
I think that it's art.
Okay. So it does look, see, some of you are having thesis statements that are actually questions. Just remember that the thesis statement is the answer to the question, not the question itself. right? So it's not really, when you say my thesis is, does location determine whether it's art or crime, that's the setup to your thesis. Your thesis would be, I think location does matter, or I don't think location matters, right? So the answer to the question. So in your mind, does location matter in terms of determining whether it's art or no? Okay, so location does not matter in your mind. And you think it's what? Either way, art or...
I think it's art.
My sources do relate to my thesis because my thesis is basically graffiti is an artwork. It's a new form of artwork. It's not just common. So all my sources relate back to graffiti because all of these guys are basically artists or graffiti artists, and it is art because people see art as a message that translates to the public. So it is art.
You see different sides of an issue, but I don't want your essays to end up being, well, some people think graffiti is art and some people think graffiti is vandalism, and these are the reasons why. I ultimately want to know what you think.
The sixth and final stage is to revise the first draft into a polished final draft.
Graffiti is still looked at as vandalism, as illegal, and something that's done wrong, and there are people who do it maliciously, but at the end of the day, even if they do it maliciously, it doesn't mean that they don't put a piece of artwork on the walls.
I still think it's not okay to vandalize other people's territory and properties. I still think that. But I do see the meaning in those works that people did in places where they shouldn't have.
At the beginning, like I said, I didn't really feel, I felt that graffiti was wrong, and just the way my emotions were changing and my feeling towards graffiti. So it was different. Usually if I have a topic, it's just a topic I have to research. I don't change my mind about it. So that way I was probably freaking out a little at the beginning because I thought, oh my goodness, what am I going to write about if I don't feel for it or against it? But I figured it out.
It was like right in the middle. It would seem like if you're standing from the street looking into the lot, it was like right in the middle, and it was like, I don't know if it was a man or a woman, but he or she was holding the can of paint as if he or she was painting itself. And it just spoke a lot to me because it's like, you know, you can make yourself, or like, you know, like he or she was just making herself. It was cool.